Let's switch it up a little bit and talk some Phillies baseball. And Bob, as we speak, the MLB trade deadline is 8 days away. What do you think? Will Dave Dombrowski add another bullpen arm beyond David Robertson and or an outfielder before August 1st?
He needs to.
Yeah.
I know that. This is a huge trade deadline for Dave Dombrowski because, I don't know how much longer this window's open, especially when you look at what's happening in free agency with Realmuto, Ranger. Some of them are going to be back, but the clock is ticking for this team. And to me, if you can go for it, whoever you can get to improve most in that area, but it is harder in defense of all baseball general managers. It's harder than ever to make a deadline deal because with all these teams able to make the playoffs, it's hard it's hard to sort out who thinks they're in and who thinks they're not. I'd love to see him get the kid closer from the A's. I've been dreaming this for 10 years that one day Mike Trout ends up playing in Philadelphia. I'm skeptical that either one of those things is going to happen. But, there was talk about Ward, the other outfielder who kind of killed the Phillies during that 3-game series, him possibly being available. But it's a huge trade deadline for Dave Dombrowski. He needs to do something. He's going to do something. I'd be shocked if he didn't. How big, I don't know. But, I just think this team is at a point where they need that arm in the bullpen. There is a fair point about the bullpen that the bullpen we've been watching for, most of the season is not going to be the same bullpen they go into the postseason with because they have their own guys including starters and, Andrew Painter, what's going to happen. Although I'm not near excited about Andrew Painter as some people are right now because he hasn't pitched all that great, in AAA this season. Mick Abel's kind of come back to earth. To me, when I talk about the trade deadline, I'm not afraid to give up. Certainly not Mick Abel, but also Andrew Painter. I wouldn't be afraid to give him up. I can remember going back to the 09s, 08s, Kyle Drabek being untouchable. Finally, he was touchable. They used him to get Roy Halladay. I don't think there were any regrets about getting Roy Halladay for Kyle Drabek. We see these guys as being untouchable, but so many of them don't pan out. And I'm not saying that Andrew Painter will not. The other thing I found interesting in that regard was their draft. They drafted, I think, their first 7 draft picks were college pitchers. Yeah. Yep. I'm not following as closely as I was when I was on the beat, but I'm pretty sure that's correct. When you do that, you're saying we want guys here fast. I don't know if any one of those 7 would be able to step in and be a part of, a bullpen that helped. So it's just going to be interesting to see what Dombrowski does and how this bullpen is pieced together. More so than the outfielder. Outfielder, you're either going to get a guy or you're not. But I think they need help badly in that they need that one right-handed bat to really complement Harper, Turner, and Schwarber. I think they need that right-handed bat really bad. And they probably need to get a little better at the bottom of the lineup as well. But I don't know. If you can at least be really lethal at the top 5. You got a chance, especially with the pitching, with the rotation they have. They certainly have a chance.
Bob, the word seems to be that Kyle Schwarber is interested in talking about a new contract even during the year and not testing free agency. It sounds like the Phillies want to keep him. 3 years, $100 million, maybe. He makes $20 million now. What do you think? Three for 100?
I would do that for the simple reason there's the designated hitter, and we've seen other designated hitters be able to go late in their careers and have success. It's harder than ever because guys throw harder than ever. But to me, you got to do everything you can to keep that guy because he's not just the heart of the lineup. he is the heart of the clubhouse. He is the, and again, I'm not in the clubhouse the way I once was, but I have know enough people to tell me that is the case, that he's the guy, even more so than Bryce Harper, who really is the glue in the clubhouse and the leader of that clubhouse. Harper certainly is too, but to me, Kyle Schwarber's got to stick around.
Well, Bob, you were at the Inquirer during the Phillies' great run, 2007 through 11. Thoughts about Jimmy Rollins and Ed Wade being added to the Phil's Wall of Fame this weekend?
That's a hole in one. Little Jimmy Rollins humor there.
Yeah.
Did you see how much the boat cost? That boat is $350,000. That's not a boat. That's a yacht. But yeah, we knew that the string of those 08 championship Phillies and beyond was going to start. I guess Pat Burrell went in a few years ago. He was the first from the 08 team. But we're going to see that run. It starts with Jimmy Rollins. That's probably a good place to start, because after Burrell, he was the first one up here and making an impact. It was a no-brainer that he was going to be on that Wall of Fame. I think probably for some people, Ed Wade is controversial because they didn't win. I don't think they went to the playoffs in the entire time Ed was the GM. But with the blessing of Pat Gillick, who thanked him after they won the World Series and credited him for being a huge part of building that team. And I think Ed was a good GM. I think he paid his dues, worked from the PR department with the Phillies when in the 70s to different jobs where he became the assistant for Lee Thomas. He was the assistant GM when they went to the World Series in '93. And he's a guy who bleeds Philly red, and his fingerprints were on that 08 team and that team that made runs. I've actually had this discussion with Ed, and I think that given the payroll and the resources that Pat Gillick and now David Dombrowski and other Phillies GMs have had since Ed Wade, Ed certainly would have been able to take this team to some, you never know about championships, but playoff runs and long successful runs. If you go back and look at I think it's the 03-4. I think I looked at this one time, 03-4, 5, and 6. All those teams in today's setup would have been playoff teams.
Wow, interesting. Hey, one final question for me, Bob, from the Phillies. The starting pitching, this rotation, as we saw the last two nights, fantastic. Ranger struggled a little bit his last outing, but he's been really good too. Is this as good of, let's say, 4 that they've had in quite a long time? They match up with that Halladay Hamels group? Yeah,
I mean, to me, the best was the Hamels, Halladay, Cliff Lee, and Roy Oswalt, and the Vanimal, Vance Wardley, was also really good that year.
Yeah.
In some ways, he was probably better than Oswalt, who got hurt in the middle of that year. But that to me is still the gold standard for Phillies rotations. But this one is really great. It's more homegrown in some ways, because you got. It'll be interesting to see if Nola comes back, but you got Ranger. I guess Suarez is not a homegrown guy. They made a trade with the Rays to get him. I was looking at that today. I think it's Chris Meade they traded for, and Meade is he's an Australian. He's an Australian. He's with the Rays now. He's an infielder, but the Rays are saying, why did we give up Chris Sanchez? But this is a really terrific rotation. The thing about the rotation, though, I often look at is I look around baseball. I'm a box score junkie in a lot of ways, and just look, at the pitching matchups or every day. And so many teams have good pitchers anymore. good starting pitchers. There's so many guys with ERAs under 3. But to me, the Phillies have put together great rotation. That is a credit to Dave Dombrowski that he's been able to do that. We'll see. Luzardo seems like he's struggling a bit at the moment. But actually, that's really the only guy he's gotten for him is Luzardo that's currently here. And Matt Klentak probably deserves a lot of credit for getting Zach Wheeler here. He does deserve a lot of credit for that. He took a lot of grief for a lot of things, but Zach Wheeler, it's probably top 5 free agent signings of all time for this Phillies team. He's lights out. And I forget who made the Sanchez trade. I forget what year that was made. But that may have also been Klentak. I'm not sure.
Folks, follow this guy on X, the former Twitter. Read him on NJ.com. He covers the Eagles primarily, occasionally a Phillies article as well. Bob, thanks, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.